So we have to stop this government spending. The only way to do that is to balance the federal budget. So I've introduced a balanced budget resolution that would require the Congress to balance the federal budget every year. Because I think Congress has proven itself politically incapable of balancing the budget. I think we need a federal requirement to do that. So I've reintroduced that this year because I think long-term that's the only way of solving the problem. But I also think we need to go through federal government looking for waste and abuse, looking for programs that are underfunded. The last time we had a problem in this program was the end of World War II. And coming out of World War II, Congress recognized that we had a problem. And so they introduced something they call an anti-appropriations committee to go through every federal program of government, looking for programs that were not meeting their intended purpose, programs that were wasteful, programs that needed to be scaled back or eliminated, and recommending those for elimination. And you know what? It worked. It worked.
What about the $6 million
the federal budget was back into balance. So I say it worked then, it can work now. I had 19 co-sponsors on that legislation last year. This is the year I think we're going to get it done.
You're talking!
Another thing that we're going to do is our wildfire protection. This is something I think living in a rural area of California, we all know how vulnerable wildfires that we are. And the recent experience with the Line Fire and the Palisades Fire and the Eaton fires, I think, should drive home the fact that we need to be prepared for these wildfires. We need to do a better job. We need to do a better job at managing our national forests. So we in Congress just 2 weeks ago passed a bill called the Fix Our Forests Act, which will streamline permitting projects like fuels reduction, streamline permitting for the construction of fire breaks and access roads.
There are fire breaks already!
I want to tell you, the Line Fire last year was coming up exactly the same fire track as the old fire was 20 years ago, the San Bernardino National Forest. And I got a call in the middle of September from the incident commander. I was getting daily updates on that fire. And I got a call and he said, Jay, I think we're going to lose 1,000 homes in Running Springs tonight. Because that's exactly what the old fire had done on that track. But fortunately, that was the night that they were able to turn the tide and start to contain that fire. And the only reason that they were able to do it is they contained it in an area that we had thinned over the last 10 years. They stopped it at a fire break we had constructed, and they were able to stop it with equipment moved on access roads that we had built. So we need to do a better job managing our national forests. So the Fix Our Forests Act was authored by a good friend of mine, Bruce Westerman. He's actually a retired forester. We're very fortunate to have him in Congress. And I was able to get a couple of amendments added to the Fix Our Forests Act, which I'm very proud of. I think that we can use technology, things like low Earth orbit satellites and artificial intelligence to help us fight this fires. And so I created a pilot program that will combine these imagery from low Earth orbit satellites and AI that can detect right when a fire starts and can distinguish between a campfire and a tree that's been ignited by lightning, and dispatch fast aerial firefighting resources, aircraft now, the drones in the future that will put that fire out while it's still small enough to be put out from the air. If we can get these fires stopped before they stop the spread, I think that we're going to be able to contain these fires and avoid the kind of damage that we've got. So we're going to keep working on that. Okay, another thing that I want to talk about is our obligation to our veterans. So our congressional district is very unique. We have 5 major military installations and over 40,000 veterans. And so I have been committed to making sure we fight for the people of this country. It sounds like let the people talk. 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 All right, hey, listen, folks. Again, Curtis.
Yakimo, Town Manager for the Town of Yucca Valley. This is the Yucca Valley Community Space. It is your space as a taxpayer. We understand that.
Yeah.
So, you have the ability to do this. What we would ask on behalf of everybody is to allow for the conversation so that people can actually hear what's being said.
Conversations are two ways. Conversations are two ways.
So with that, Congressman, I'll turn it back to you. We would just ask for decorum.
He's not saying anything to us.
All right, so I'll tell you what. Okay, I want to finish talking about our commitment to our veterans. And then we're going to do that. Does that work for you? Okay.
You're lying to me!
Does that work for everyone? Okay, so we have 5 major military installations, including 29 Palms nearby, but 5 military installations in this congressional district, over 40,000 veterans. And I feel very deeply about making sure we honor our commitment to those people. So that's one of the things that I've been fighting for. So I want to talk about a couple of things that have been big wins for our veterans that we've been able to accomplish last Congress and this Congress. And the first one is something called the PACT Act. We have had veterans coming back from places like Iraq and Afghanistan with serious respiratory illnesses that they get from the toxic fumes that they inhale from the burn pits over there. And yet the Veterans Administration has been refusing medical care for those conditions because they say it's not service related, even though the science is 100% clear on that issue. And I say that's shameful. So we have been fighting for years to try and get that connection established, and finally, 18 months ago, we were able to get the PACT Act onto the President's desk, and President Biden signed it into law that establishes that service connection. So we're working through that backlog that is finally getting those veterans the care that they deserve. Another big one that I want to talk about is that I've been fighting for better pay for our enlisted servicemen and women, because I'm ashamed to say we have people that serve in the districts in California on our military bases that don't even make the minimum wage in California, and I say that is shameful. So we have been fighting for better pay for them, and I'm really happy to report that 2 months ago in December, we passed our annual, what we call the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. And that's our annual funding and policy document for the Department of Defense. And we were able to secure an almost 20% pay increase for our enlisted men and women through that. First time in a few years, I'm really happy about that. A 4.5% for non-enlisted personnel. And we're also able to get a number of amendments that I sponsored into that bill to improve the quality of life for our servicemen and women at these bases, including things like better health care at China Lake, solid fuel rocket motor research at Edwards Air Force Base, more support for home-based businesses at Fort Irwin. So it was an honor to be able to get that in. We have also been working to make sure that the hospital in Loma Linda and the facilities there provide world-class health care service to our veterans. And most of the veterans that I represent in our district go and rely on Loma Linda for their serious health needs. So Loma Linda, the good news is they do provide very high quality of service to our veterans, and most of our veterans are very happy with them. The bad news is over the last 18 months, I've been leading an investigation into the toxic workplace culture there at Loma Linda that was catalyzed by some very courageous whistleblowers. And we have identified this workplace issue that needs to be fixed. So just last week, I partnered with Mike Kloss, who is the chairman of the Veterans Affairs Commission, introducing something we call the VA Accountability Act. That would be the first step to holding the VA accountable and fixing those issues. So we're going to get that signed into law this year. All right, so
what are you doing for Yucca Valley? Joshua Tree 29.
Okay, so we're going to draw numbers, and we're going to have people come up and ask questions. But I'm going to ask something of you. Okay, because I fear that we are in danger of losing our ability to have a civil discourse with each other. Okay?
Take a question.
I don't want this to evolve into a situation where you are yelling, the speaker's yelling, I'm yelling. I don't want that to happen. Okay? So I'm going to ask, let's be civil to each other, and let's have a discussion with each other. Because if I can't hear what the speaker is saying, because you're yelling, then I can't answer their question, okay? And I want us to be respectful. All right, let's draw some numbers. All right, 35494-247. 35294-247. 35494-237. 35494-237. 35494-400. 35494-400. Yes, sir, what can I answer for you?
How's it going? My name's Joe Candelaria. I'm from 29 Palms, born and raised. So, this community struggles with gainful employment, correct?
Yeah!
6 jobs have been lost. 6 jobs that pay into this community. You talk about veterans, you talk about, the nuclear family wanting to reestablish American values. So you have 29 Palms, which has a growing family community. You have a military base you've talked about. 6 jobs have already left this community. You talk about veterans and all the things that they've done for this country. Who loves veterans here? Yeah! Who loves veterans here? Yeah! So, next up on the chopping block is VRA hires. Who knows what a VRA hire is? It's the fucking thing you fought for. Veterans are allowed to get pulled off of any cert and can get a job federally. So they go from that military base to that national park to have gainful employment in a community that is underprivileged, under-resourced, and you want to take that, you talk about military isn't paid enough. So let's take away SNAP benefits. You know who takes a lot of SNAP benefits? Military families, because we don't pay them enough. And that comes to be 2 towns over, 29 Palms. Who's been to 29 Palms Farmers Market? You talk about community? They have a matching program right now through SNAP, in which if you spend a dollar amount, you get a matching dollar amount. This is a fucking food desert, and that resource is a vital resource to this community, and you're going to take it away. What jobs are you bringing back to this community, and how are you going to protect our veterans through VRA hires? Because they are on the chopping block. What say to you that?
Okay, so I'm sorry. What do I vote to take away?
Jobs are leaving this community.
No, sir, you just said I voted to take away SNAP benefits. I'm curious, what did I vote for that takes away SNAP benefits?
I'm not going to be gaslit. Answer the questions. What jobs are you bringing back to this community? And what are you doing to protect veterans and their families?
Okay, so what jobs are we bringing back? Did I not tell you when we first started this conversation? We are rehiring. Okay, we are rehiring. Okay, so I think it was a mistake to lay off the people in the National Park System. We pushed back and we're getting that mistake corrected. Of course, sir, this was a bipartisan effort to make sure the administration was aware that all they were doing was going to help people. And I am very, very happy that they have gotten that message. Okay? All right, answer my question.
No answers! You heard it! No fucking answers!
Hi. Thank you. Okay, my name is Heather Drake. I live in 29 Palms, California. I'm a lifelong Inland Empire resident. I was actually a resident of Big Bear when you were the mayor, and my husband had the privilege of teaching both of your sons at Big Bear High School. And my question to you as a member of Congress, which holds the purse for our government, is what are you going to do to stop the cuts how do you feel about a unelected, non-confirmed
Great question, and I'm glad you asked it.
Oh!
Okay?
Answer it!
Okay, I am very glad someone is looking at all of the waste. When we were talking about the budget deficit, we are in an existential crisis.
That is for Congress, not an unelected foreign billionaire!
I'm sure we are going to be the first generation of Americans that fail in our promise to
No more Musk! No more Musk! No more Musk! No more Musk! Do your job! 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 It's not up to Musk. You're surrendering to billionaires, you coward!
The problem is, no one has solutions to this problem about how to do it.
It's not. Then have a committee. It's not for the autocrat to decide.
The American people voted for change in November.
I'm a resident of Joshua Tree, and I moved here just happenstance on January 31st, 2020, completely by accident, and ended up in this wonderful community. I work a job where I'm a paralegal for a wrongful termination. I'm a paralegal for a firm that is a plaintiff's side wrongful termination. What's your number? And I can tell you firsthand from my work that phrases like toxic work culture would not exist without implementation of laws that protect people that are now being erased from government websites. So my question to you, sir, is from an extremely emotional conversation that I had with a member of the EEOC who told me 5 years ago that his job would be gone with the stroke of a pen. Where does that leave the people who look different from you, and what are you going to do to protect them?
Well, I think it's a great question, a completely fair one. Okay, and I think that we in America all share the same vision.
No, we don't. We obviously don't.
I think we share the same vision in this sense. We believe in a country that treats everybody fairly, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of their sexual orientation, regardless of disabilities they might have. Do you not agree with that? Okay?
Then vote that way.
That's what we are all working to try and achieve.
Then grow a spine and vote that way.
So my follow-up then is not about specifically America's vision, which is what you just said in response to the question, but what are you actively going to stand up and oppose if they try to get rid of the EEOC and commissions like this that were enacted
years and years and years ago. Title VII has been around since 1964, okay? And it's not going away, and if it goes away, where does that leave all of us? It leaves us watching books get burned. That's where it leaves us.
Okay, so to be clear, we're all working towards a society where everybody is treated equally and fairly. That's will be necessary. And I'm hoping that we're almost there. I'm hoping we're there. All right, we're going to go You guys having fun? I'm having fun. 35494-269. 35494-269.
Oh, yes.
35494-324.
Oh, boy.
35494-324.
I know. That's what are the odds of that? He didn't bring a sign.
35494-279. 35494-279.
Sign, guys, speak.
35494-268. 35494-268.
Okay, once again, my name is Curtis Yaskimo with the town of Yucca Valley. Again, just asking for a little bit of decorum. The more quickly we're able to get through questions, the more opportunity you folks will have to speak.
Yes, ma'am, what can I answer for you?
We were talking about the deficit at the beginning of your speech, and how it was better in the 50s, I think. And you were talking about the tax rate and how they fixed some things, and if they did it then, we should be able to do it now. And I'm just here to say that billionaires should be taxed. Some data here that the top two rates in the 1950s were 50.6% and 55.3%. And so that could fix it right now. Do you think of something you guys could do in Congress to get rid of Elon Musk and let him pay his taxes?
I'm not familiar with those statistics exactly, but they sound right. That sounds right. In fact, we have had higher marginal tax rates than that. In the 1970s, I believe the top marginal tax rate was something like 90%. So the problem is, no one actually paid it, right? Because why would you give the government 90 cents on the dollar? You would just not make that extra dollar. So if you look at our revenues and our taxes, folks, and I sit on the House Budget Committee, take it from me, we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. We collected more federal tax dollars in form of income tax last year than any year in the history of our country. Our tax collections are over 17% of federal gross domestic product just at the federal level, okay, which is higher than the average over the history of our country. So we are collecting plenty of tax. So let me answer your question directly.
But from who?
Last year, the top 1% of taxpayers paid nearly 50% of all of the taxes collected. The top 1% paid over 50%. Okay? And so, I Okay, and let's talk about this. So we talk about people like Mr. Musk. So when I represented you in the California legislature, I was the vice chair of the budget committee for 5 years. And we had several years where a substantial portion of California state income tax came from one person, and that was Elon Musk. Okay? That he is not paying tax is just flat out wrong. We don't have a revenue problem. We're collecting lots of revenue. The rich are paying lots of the top 1% pay almost half of it. We have a spending problem.
Bullshit. Deport him. Bullshit.
I think they're giving statistics that don't mean anything, because what percentage did Elon Musk pay? What percentage of his income?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
We need to know. We need to know. What kind of expert are you?
When I was on the budget committee in the legislature, that just Elon Musk made up a substantial portion of all the revenue of California.
Bullshit.
Kathy Bradshaw from Landers. My question is, with all of the chaos and the cuts that President Trump and Elon Musk is making, how many people have to die before you do something? And doesn't that make him a murderer and you complicit?
I know that there is a lot of angst and consternation over the changes that are being made by the Trump administration. And I got that. But remember, this is something we have been through before.
This is a coup! Fascism! This is fascism! It's a coup!
We have a balanced federal budget.
Bullshit!
Democrat President Clinton did that. And he did that.
Bring him back! No king! No king! No king! No king! No king! King! No king! No king!
The first night that Bill Clinton was in office, he issued an executive order that said he was going to cut 4% of the federal workforce. And that created a lot of consternation. And people have a Democratic president come in and say he's going to make these big cuts. And you know what? He followed through. Over the next 4 years, he laid off hundreds of thousands of federal employees. And you know why he did that? Because that's what was required to get the budget in balance.
Bullshit!
And you know what? We haven't had a balanced budget since then. So I know that there's consternation over this.
So what about his tax cuts?
Someone is looking at this because they're not pretty much. All right.
Did Bill Clinton have a billionaire do it for him? Who was Bill Clinton's billionaire?
More questions.
Who was Bill Clinton's billionaire, Congressman?
All right. 35494-254. 35494-254.
How about disabled students?
35494-343. 35494-343.
Yeah. We've got a crook in the White House. What are you going to do about it?
320. 35494-320. Three 35494-406. 35494-406.
Do you support hardening the cop leaders and the terror
Yes, ma'am. What can I answer for you?
Do you support that?
Hi, Congressman. Thank you for being here today. My primary concern is with our system of checks and balances. I understand about wanting to cut the deficit, but I don't understand about going around the proper channels. And my priority is knowing that you will protect the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah!
And I don't think done with no consideration of how the executive branch is working against Congress is acceptable.
Yeah!
How are you going to protect the Constitution?
You swore an oath!
I think that's a great question. And you know what? I completely agree with you. 100%. Our system of democracy is based on, as the gentlelady said, a system of checks and balances. And we're supposed to have 3 different branches of government that provide checks against each other. Okay? And so once in a while, and this has happened throughout the history of our country, once in a while we have a branch that tries to seize more power than they're entitled to. And it's up to the other 2 branches to push back. And you know what? That is exactly what's happening right now. Okay? So let's talk about just the last couple of days, where we have a court system, and we're a society that believes in the rule of written law based on the ultimate written law, which is our U.S. Constitution. And we rely on our courts to intervene when laws are broken. And this is what's happening right now.
That's only one branch.
The administration is trying to do a lot of things through executive orders, and the courts are weighing in. And the courts have in some cases said, you can't do that. So
What about Congress?
Just yesterday, the court said, in the case of Social Security, or I'm sorry, the IRS, we're going to block DOGE and the Trump administration's access to taxpayer-level data. And the courts also weighed in yesterday in the case of NIH grant funding, and they put a block on the administration's ability to rescind that funding. And the courts also weighed in yesterday, 2 days ago actually, on the Trump administration's efforts to pare back USAID funding, and the court said that as the plenary head of the executive branch, the president does have the authority to do that. Okay? And let me remind you, this is not the first president that we have had to try to govern by executive order.
No, he's a dictator. He's not our president.
President Barack Obama. And so he issued executive orders that he knew tested the limits of what was legal. And you know what his reaction was? He said, so sue me. And people did. And the courts did exactly the same thing. In some cases, they said what the president was doing was legal. In some cases, they put a stop to it. And that's what happened then. It's happening now. The system is working as intended, and we will get through it as it comes.
What about Congress? What about Congress? Do your job. Do your job.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Fernandez. I live in Yucca Valley, and I'm here to speak about an issue that's very important to our community and could affect a lot of other communities in the desert. Many people here don't know that 2 days ago, the president signed an executive order that essentially made the National Environmental Policy Act unenforceable. It revoked the powers of the Council for Environmental Quality to enforce NEPA, and basically left all of our federal public lands in limbo to the whims of the individual agencies to enforce NEPA. So all of the commercial developers who are proposing projects on our federal lands and who are in bed with the Bureau of Land Management, for instance, have really nothing to stop them from exploiting our public federal lands for commercial gains. Specifically, there is a 200-foot tall tower proposed in Morongo Valley, less than 100 feet from rural residential land in a rugged area containing habitat for endangered species and other threatened wildlife. It is less than 400 feet from my property where I'm raising a toddler and poses many dangers to the community, one of which is wildfire danger, with the storage of 3,000 gallons of fuel, and it has no access to water for firefighting. It threatens our property values, which threatens the basis of funding for our local fire department. And this particular project is proposed by a private developer on our federal lands. It does not comply with any of the land use plans. specifically the special recreation management area. It does not comply with the visual resource class 2, which is to protect the scenic visual resources of our very special Morongo Valley. This tower, 200 feet tall on top of a 300-foot hilltop in a very rugged area, will be an obstruction to aerial support during a wildfire event. It will be the first thing anybody sees when they enter the high desert, when they reach the top of the Morongo grade. And without NEPA being enforced by the CEQ, there is nothing to stop this project from moving forward now. I know that you personally support the use of satellite technology for early wildfire detection. We support technology for our communication uses as well, satellite technology, not these obsolete behemoth towers that it's old tech and it's exploiting our lands. These towers, if this is allowed to happen, it will happen anywhere else. Very close to our neighborhoods and our wildlife that we cherish. What are you going to do to enforce the National Environmental Policy Act and ensure that non-compliant proposals by private developers don't exploit our federal land?
Thank you very much for the question. I met with the town council this morning before this community meeting, and I'm told that the developer is withdrawing their application for that tower and they're going to find a different place to build it. But let me talk about CEQA and NEPA, okay? And this is something that is very important to me because over half of the land mass of my congressional district is public lands of one form or another. Bureau of Land Management, National Forest, state park land. So the ways in which that land is used and the ways it is protected is of vital consequence to the people that I represent. And so I make sure that we have a seat at the table anytime we have a discussion about those lands. So the problem with CEQA and NEPA is that sometimes they have unintended consequences that are very negative for the people that actually live here. Let me give you an example from this morning. So I'm sure everyone has gotten a front row seat here about the whole saga over the Joshua tree and listing it as endangered and the mitigation fees, all of that, right? We have people here in Yucca Valley who want to just replace an aging septic tank on land that's already disturbed, sitting under their house, and they're getting bills for $50,000 and $60,000 to mitigate Joshua trees that are already there that they're not even going to disturb them because within 50 feet of the septic tank. That's not true. Talk to your town council. They showed me the bill this morning. Goodness gracious, people. Okay? So this is an example of unintended consequences. And we need to fix, we absolutely need the protections for our national lands. We all want to be good stewards of our environment. Okay? But we also need to be good stewards of the people that live here, and we need to protect their rights as well. And so I think that there is a balance to be had there. And I think that there's a world where common sense can prevail, and elderly residents don't get $60,000 bills for mitigation when all they want to do is maintain their house. So I think that we can have our cake and eat it too. I think that there's a middle ground of common sense that we can enforce those laws, we can protect our national land, but we can also protect the rights of people who live here. And so we're going to keep fighting for that. But thank you very much for your time. Well, we got a couple of people. I'm still having fun. All right. All right. 35494-416. 35494-416. Too many morons. 35494-220. 35494-220. 35494-214. 35494-214. All right, yes ma'am, what can I answer for you?
not afraid to bend over corporate.
So I know that you earned a PhD at California Baptist University in 2020, managing budgetary conflict between the executive and legislative branches of government. So that seems to indicate that you, and so let me ask you a question, and this is a yes or no question, please. Does Congress hold the purse? Is Congress the body that we elected to be in charge of how our funds are managed and spent?
Yes, absolutely yes.
Just now, as you were asked about it, you deferred to our court system. And our court system, when Trump lied about the voting, because the machines hadn't been hacked yet, when they lied about it, there were 91 federal cases about their attempts to try to steal the 2020 election by, oh, we want to know you did it. Okay. Now there might be 91 of his own personal cases for rape and this. I get the numbers mixed up. I'm not great at the factual details because I don't have a PhD in this like you do. But it sounds to me like what you said is like, oh, well, the court said he didn't steal our information, but we all know he had like Musk and 6 other hackers all over that information for the last 2 weeks. So you know darn well, as a person who owns a gaming company, that all just went onto a hard drive. I don't even know, flip, like however they do it now up to the cloud, that information, they have it.
A USB file.
No, you just went like this. You're without even knowing it. You went like this. So you've deferred to the courts as a member of Congress when our courts are no longer allowed to prosecute rapes, and if they do, the rich people get off. Our courts pay to play system. So of course, as a member of Congress, when you divert to the courts, you have now handed over our tax dollars to the courts. So, and we all know there's a separation of the civil court and the criminal court. And what Trump and Musk are doing is absolutely criminal.
Yeah!
To us, why Congress has deferred their responsibility to protect the funding of the United States. And by the way, when she said that the budget was balanced when there was a 50% tax on the richest people, you went to 1990 when it wasn't. So I say, let's go back, and if somebody like Elon Musk paid, like how much taxes? Because we know the federal government gave him $16 billion. So how much of that $16 billion in government grants approved by Congress did he give to California? Do you know that number? Because you have a PhD in this stuff, so I would think you would have that number.
So I actually think that's a really good question.
I bet you do.
So we've been talking about the courts and about the executive orders, right? Which is different than fundamentally the question you asked. You asked a question about if Congress controls the power of the purse, right? Which we absolutely do. And I'll tell you, the conflict that will come is over something called impoundment, which is when Congress appropriates money for a certain purpose, does the president have the responsibility and obligation to spend it for that purpose?
Whoa, yeah.
Absolutely he does. Okay, this conflict goes back, I have a whole chapter in my dissertation on this, which maybe you've read. This conflict goes all the way back to Thomas Jefferson, which was the first president to try and say, no, you've appropriated me this money. In this case, it was for gunboats on the Potomac, but I don't think they're necessary. I'm not going to spend it. So that conflict goes back that far. In the 1970s, with President Nixon, a compromise was finally reached in something called, excuse me, ma'am, you talk and I talk. Okay?
What are you gonna do?
Let me finish answering your question. Okay, let me finish answering your question. Okay? Something was passed called the Impoundment Control Act, which makes it explicitly clear that the president has an obligation to spend money for the purposes that Congress appropriated. Okay, so that is current law, right? Okay, we haven't actually had a chance to enforce it yet because there's a lawsuit that's been brought over this, and the courts have given the Trump administration a little bit of discretion to reorganize that, okay? Because, ma'am, we do not have any law enforcement powers, the courts have the powers. So if we have a problem with the administration, we do exactly what the public does, and we bring a lawsuit. Okay? So you will see Congress assert itself on this topic because we cannot give up the power and the purpose, and nor will we. I actually appreciate the question as a good one. Yes, ma'am, I'm going to answer for you.
Yes, hi. I'm one of the 4 million disabled Californians who rely on Social Security, disability, Medicare. California also has one of the worst homelessness epidemics in the country. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick appeared on Fox News on Thursday and confirmed the Musk-Trump administration will seek to cut $1 trillion from these essential programs. He said this would be done under the claims of fraud Musk has made without any evidence in which were debunked that 150-year-old Social Security members were receiving benefits. I'm very concerned that we're being told to just trust Musk, especially when he frequently uses the R word, which is a well-known slur used to dehumanize the mentally disabled.
Yep.
It's not just that they want to cut these programs under false pretenses, Congressman, but it's the people who want to cut them seem to hold radically negative views of the disabled community. Even J.D. Vance, when he appeared on a podcast, promoted that people in the audience should read the works of a Mr. Curtis Yarvin, who once claimed that disabled people should be turned into biofuel so that we would be useful. My question to you is if in enacting these massive cuts, mistakes are made like the recent accidental firing of workers who oversee nuclear storage facilities, what is your plan for how and where people like me and millions of other Californians, including the elderly, will be fed and housed after we are made homeless by these cuts? And then a follow-up to the last person's question, if and when Trump does violate the laws about Congress's power of the purse, will you impeach him?
There has been a lot of angst and consternation about programs that everyone relies on, like Social Security, like Medicare, like Medicaid. So I want to be crystal clear about this. No one is talking about reducing benefits to the people that depend on them.
He talks out his ass. He's a liar.
You saw him say just this last week, hands off Medicaid.
He's a liar. 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 Liar.
Is to take a look at these programs and make sure that those dollars are getting to the people who depend on them. Because we have this vast bureaucracy that's soaking those dollars up. We have mistaken payments, improper payments that are being made.
Bullshit, then go through Congress.
Our dollars
Hold a hearing.
going to the people who depend on them. So that's what's talking about being done.
That's your job.
Back the Inspector General. As a member of the House Budget Committee, we have been talking about these programs. The cuts that have been discussed are incredibly modest. It's about 2.5% of total spending. We can 100% find all of that just looking for the waste and the bureaucracy.
The waste is in the...
So we're not talking about making those cuts. I'm sorry, everyone's yelling. I can't hear what you're saying.
These incompetent people
people make giant mistakes like they did with the nuclear, and then they just say, oh, whoops, I didn't.
How about the air traffic controllers? 8 plane crashes in 1 month.
You know what? Another important point, and let me correct something you said a moment ago. California actually has the worst homelessness of any state in the country. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, we have the worst poverty of any state in the country right here in California. Okay? So it is a terrible problem. We need to be doing more about it. But what no one is talking about doing is making cuts to these vital programs and keeping the
Good morning, Congressman. My name is April Ramirez. I am a councilwoman in the city of 29 Palms. I'm a mom, I'm a nurse, and I am, I believe, the first active duty military spouse from the Naval Hospital. My husband has been in the Marine Corps for 12 years. I'm sorry, from the Naval Base. And I feel like this. If there was a light, it's going to be divided, right? Because there's a lot of things to be angry at. I will very openly say our government at this point in time is very broken. However, I also believe, and I teach this to my children, that we have to be happy for the small things in life. I'm not, just let me finish, please. Thank you. And so, ma'am, thank you. And so I was asked on behalf of 36 active duty military families that did benefit, that said before, we didn't have diapers, we didn't have wipes, and because of this pay increase for our current active duty military members, we are now able to breathe freely. So I was asked to just come and say thank you for the steps and the energy that is being put in to taking care of our active duty military, because this is when it truly is important to take care of them, and not when it's too late, when we're veterans and when they're on the streets and when they don't have accessible health care. It has to start from the beginning. So I just want to say thank you for taking those steps as a man.
Is that a
Thank you and your husband for your service. We're going to keep fighting on that. All right, so one thing I wanted to end on, okay, is to talk about the reason why we believe in representative government in this country. We practice a form of democracy that's fundamentally different than that practiced in a lot of other countries, particularly those in Europe. In Europe, you vote for a party when you go to the polls, and the party decides who represents you. Here in the United States, we believe in voting for a person. And even though I get the sense that a lot of people in this room didn't vote for me, I got that message.
Who voted for Musk?
Yeah, who voted for Musk?
Your representative is me, and I take that responsibility very seriously. The reason why we believe in voting for a person and not a party is so that when you have a dispute with your government, you will have someone fighting in your corner, representing your interests.
We're not feeling it.
So I have a district office staff with members of my staff who are deeply passionate about the work that we do for you. And I want to encourage you, on your way out, grab a business card. When you get home, throw it in the drawer. And when you have a problem with your government, in a month or a year or 2 years, would you please call me? We can solve problems for you that you have been fighting against for years. Let me give you a couple of examples. If you are a veteran, or if you know someone who is a veteran, and you're having problems getting the benefits that you were promised, or you're having problems with the VA, would you please call me? I have people on my staff that specialize in solving problems for our veterans. If you're having problems with Social Security, call me. We can get those problems fixed. In fact, I had a man last week that came to us that was, they had been directing his Social Security payments to his old bank for 2 years. He couldn't get them to stop. We fixed that in a day for him. If you have a problem with a passport, if you have a loved one overseas that dies, you need an expedited renewal, if you have, you're traveling overseas, you lose your passport, the first person you should call should not be the embassy, should be me. We will get that replaced overnight for you. In fact, any problem that you have with federal government, I'm the one to call. And let me challenge you on this, because a lot of times it can be difficult to figure out what's a federal problem, what's a state problem, what's a county problem, what's a city problem, right? If you don't know who to call, would you call me? And even if I have to refer you to someone else like your county supervisor, not only will we tell you who to call, we will call with you, we will hand you off, and we will call back 2 weeks later to make sure your problem got handled. If you don't know who to call me first.
What's your cell phone number?
Thank you very much for the sometimes civil discourse that we've had this morning. Okay?
What's your number?
And thank you for spending part of your weekend with me, because I think these kinds of gatherings really matter.
Yeah, they matter. You're going to see them get bigger.
That we are losing our ability to have a civil discourse with each other.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, we're fed up.
Yep.
Folks, at the end of the day,
You're a lapdog to fascism.
we're not on team liberal or conservative, we're not on team Republican or Democrat, we all play for a team United States of America. And I hope you all keep that in mind. So thank you very much.
Here we go, ushering in the dictatorship.